You've done everything the modern world told you to do. You bought the premium bags of synthetic fertilizer with the perfect NPK ratio printed on the side. You spent your Saturday mornings hauling heavy buckets of water until your back ached and your hands were calloused. You followed the pruning guides from the big corporations, and you sprayed the expensive chemicals at the first sign of a leaf spot. But as the sun sets over your garden in late July, the reality feels heavy and hollow. You look up at your apple tree or your peach tree, and all you see is a wall of vibrant, aggressive green leaves, but not a single piece of fruit. Or perhaps there is fruit, but it's small, sour, and dropping to the wet grass before it's even half grown. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and most of all, it makes you feel like the system is broken or worse, that you are the one failing. But I want you to take a deep breath and look closer at that tree. Let's be honest about the way most people treat their orchards today. We treat trees like machines, where we can just input chemicals and output food. We think that if the tree isn't producing, it must be hungry or sick. So we buy more products, we add more nitrogen, we work harder. This is the exhaustion loop. It's a cycle of high effort and low reward that eventually leads most homesteaders to give up, leaving their trees to become nothing more than overgrown ornaments. The hard truth is this: most fruit trees don't fail because of pests, poor soil, or bad weather. They fail because they have been over-pampered into a state of biological laziness. They have been taught to grow wood, but they have forgotten how to grow food. By late winter, you usually end up with a tree that is structurally beautiful, but biologically dormant in its reproductive mission. You are operating with an incomplete map of how plant energy actually works. The secret to a massive harvest isn't in a bottle you buy at a store. It isn't a miracle product. The secret lies in a series of forgotten, ancient interventions that talk to the tree in its own language, the language of physics, biology, and survival. Today, we are going to stop guessing. We are going to stop fighting the tree and start guiding it. I'm going to show you 5 forgotten methods that will force your trees to shift their entire internal chemistry from survival mode to overproduction mode. To understand why your orchard is silent, you have to understand the fundamental psychology of a perennial plant. You see, the model you've been taught, the one that says more fertilizer equals more fruit, is a lie. It is an incomplete map. In fact, you have been operating under a system that treats the tree as a pet when it is actually a survivor. The mistake is not yours. The mistake is the form of care you've been providing. We are not going to change what the tree is. We are going to change how it arrives at its decisions. Imagine a fruit tree that has everything it needs: unlimited nitrogen, constant water, and zero competition. In that environment, the tree's DNA makes a very logical choice. It says, life is easy. There is no threat. I will spend all my energy building a giant body. I will grow thick wood, massive leaves, and reach for the clouds. This is what we call vegetative growth. It is the state of a lazy tree. But we don't want a giant green monument. We want a reproductive powerhouse. The secret you've been kept from seeing is that fruit is not a gift from a happy tree. Fruit is a survival strategy from a stressed one. In the wild, a tree produces a massive crop of seeds wrapped in delicious fruit because it senses a challenge in its environment. It produces fruit because it wants to ensure its legacy before the conditions change. By pampering your trees with high nitrogen fertilizers in late winter and spring, you are sending a biological signal that says, stay young, stay green. Don't worry about the future. You are effectively putting your orchard on a biological vacation. You are just operating with an incomplete map. You've been told that a healthy tree is a green tree. I'm telling you that a productive tree is a balanced tree, one that sits right on the edge between comfort and survival. In simple terms, we need to stop thinking about feeding the tree and start thinking about steering the tree. We are going to move from a mindset of inputs to a mindset of architecture and energy flow. The real problem isn't that your tree is incapable of giving you hundreds of pounds of fruit. The problem is that its energy is trapped in its wood. It's like a car battery that is fully charged but has corroded terminals. The power is there, but it can't reach the light. In the next Hoey, I'm going to show you the forgotten physics of how that energy moves through the bark and why January is the precise moment to grab the steering wheel. We are going to stop being gardeners and start being system stewards. To master your orchard, you must stop looking at a tree as a static object of wood and leaves. Instead, you must begin to see it as a high-speed highway of liquid energy and electrical signals. Most of us were taught that trees drink water from the soil, but that is a passive, incomplete view. In reality, a tree is an active electrical pump. The secret is not the fertilizer you pour onto the roots. The secret is the electrical potential between the atmosphere and the earth. Think of your tree like the AA battery in your wall clock. One end is positive and the other is negative. In nature, the sky carries a positive charge, ions, and the earth carries a negative charge. Your fruit tree acts as a living bridge, a biological antenna that connects these two poles. When this connection is strong, the tree has the voltage it needs to pull minerals deep from the earth and transform them into complex sugars. This is the physics of fruiting. In simple terms, sap is not just water. It is a conductive medium, a liquid gold that carries the blueprints for every apple or peach you will ever harvest. During January, while the world looks frozen, the tree is performing a massive internal migration. It is pulling its most valuable assets, sugars, starches, and minerals out of the vulnerable leaves and twigs and storing them deep within the bank account of the roots and the thickest parts of the trunk. This is thermal mass and energy banking in action. Imagine your house in the middle of a brutal winter. You wouldn't leave all the windows open and the heaters running in rooms you aren't using. You would close the doors to the spare bedrooms to keep the warmth in the center of the home. This is exactly what the tree wants to do. But because we don't prune, or we prune incorrectly, we leave too many spare rooms open. The tree's energy is spread too thin across thousands of tiny, weak twigs. When spring arrives, the voltage isn't high enough to spark a massive fruit set because the battery has been drained, trying to keep the entire structure alive through the cold. We are not just cutting wood, we are rewiring the circuit. We are closing the doors to the unused rooms so that when the sun returns, the tree can blast all of its stored energy into a few strategic points, the fruiting spurs. The forgotten science of forgotten agriculture tells us that by manipulating the physical structure of the tree in the dead of winter, we change its electrical resistance. We are narrowing the path so the sap flow becomes a high-pressure jet rather than a weak, leaking garden hose. You aren't just a gardener anymore. You are an electrical engineer of the natural world. And in the next Hoy, I'm going to show you the 5 specific switches you need to flip to make this energy explode into a harvest that will triple what you saw last year. Part 1. The carbon-starvation resetting the biological clock. The first switch we must flip is the carbon-to-nitrogen ratio, or the CN ratio. Most modern gardening advice tells you to feed your trees high nitrogen fertilizers or fresh manure in the spring to get them going. But if your tree is already lazy, producing only leaves and no fruit adding, more nitrogen is like giving a sugar-addicted child more candy. It creates a spike of cheap energy that leads to weak, watery growth. The reveal is simple, but counterintuitive. To force a tree to fruit, you must briefly starve it of nitrogen and saturate it with carbon. We are moving the tree from a state of luxury to a state of legacy building. The practical intervention, the how-to, starting in late January, you must stop all nitrogen inputs. No composted manure, no green grass clippings, and certainly no synthetic NPK pellets. Instead, we are going to perform a carbon lock. Find a source of brown organic matter, dry straw, aged wood chips, or shredded fallen leaves. Spread a thick layer, at least 4 to 6 inches, around the base of the tree, extending out to the drip line. This heavy carbon layer does something remarkable. The soil microbes will begin to consume the carbon, and, in the process, they will temporarily tie up the available nitrogen in the upper soil layer. This creates a nitrogen vacuum. Sensory instructions. When you spread this carbon, you should feel the texture. It should be dry, brittle, and smell like the forest floor, not like a barnyard. You want a dead mulch that forces the tree to look inward for its energy reserve. The field test. How do you know it's working? Watch the early spring leaves. You are looking for a very specific shade of hungry green. If the leaves are a dark, waxy forest green, the nitrogen is too high. You want a slightly lighter lime-colored green. This is the signal that the tree has realized the free lunch is over. The invisible obstacle. The biggest mistake 90% of beginners make is panicking when they see the leaves aren't dark green. They rush out and add fertilizer, breaking the carbon-starvation and resetting the tree back to leaf production mode. Hold your ground. This controlled stress is what forces the tree to dump its stored starches into the flowering spurs. Reality check. Never use wood chips from treated lumber or industrial pallets. These contain chemicals that will kill your soil biology and end up in your fruit. Use only natural, untreated browns. Part 2. The copper antenna harvesting the atmospheric. While the modern world obsesses over chemical NPK, the ancient wisdom of agriculture understood a deeper truth. Plants are electrical beings. Every storm, every breeze, and every sunrise carries a subtle electrical charge in the air. The reveal here is that we can capture this free energy and pipe it directly into the root zone of your fruit trees to stimulate cellular division and mineral uptake. The practical intervention, the how-to. We are going to build what is known as an electroculture antenna. You will need a wooden stake, bamboo, or cedar works best about 2 to 3 meters tall. You also need a length of 1/2 gauge or 1/4 gauge bare copper wire. It must be pure, solid copper. Starting at the bottom of the stake, leave about 30 centimeters of wire loose. Wind the wire around the stake in a clockwise spiral direction, moving upwards. This clockwise spiral is critical, as it aligns with the natural flow of energy in the northern hemisphere. At the very top, leave a small loop or a coil pointed toward the sky to act as the collector. Sensory instructions. As you wind the copper, feel the tension. It should be snug against the wood. When you install it, bury the bottom 30 centimeters of the stake into the ground, about 1 meter away from the trunk of your tree. You want the loose end of the copper wire to be buried deep enough to touch the moist soil near the root tips. The control group. The difference is often visible in the soil structure itself. Soil around an energized tree tends to become more flocculated, meaning it feels crumbly and spongy rather than compacted and hard. You are literally using low-voltage DC current to break the ionic bonds of compacted clay. Invisible obstacles. The most common mistake is using insulated wire with plastic coating. Plastic is a dielectric. It blocks the flow of ions from the air to the copper. Another mistake is using galvanized steel or aluminum. These metals have different electrical potentials and can cause galvanic corrosion in the soil, which can actually harm the tree's delicate root hairs. The timing gate. January is the perfect time to install these antennas because the soil is usually moist and conductive. As the sap begins its first slow crawl upward in late winter, the increased electrical potential provides the spark needed to wake up the dormant root system. Part 3. Positive stress, the art of the sacrificial scar. The third method is perhaps the most controversial, yet it is rooted in deep plant physiology. It is called girdling, or more gently, the sacrificial scar. The reveal is that we can physically manipulate the tree's plumbing to trap nutrients where they matter most, in the fruit-bearing branches. The practical intervention, the how-to. In late January or very early February, identify the main scaffold branches of your tree. You are going to create a very shallow, circular score around the bark. Using a sharp, sterilized grafting knife, make a single, clean cut through the bark, but only the bark. You must not cut into the hardwood, the xylem underneath. The goal is to temporarily disrupt the phloem, the outer layer that carries sugars produced by photosynthesis from the leaves down to the roots. Sensory instructions. As the blade moves, you should hear a slight click or snap as it parts the outer bark. It should feel like cutting through a thick piece of leather. The wound should be no wider than 2 millimeters, essentially just a line. The control group. When you girdle a branch, you are effectively creating a nutrient dam. During the spring surge, the roots send water and minerals up through the hardwood, undisturbed, but when the branch tries to send its sugary rewards back down for storage, it hits your scar. This surplus of sugar remains trapped in the branch, forcing the tree to develop massive, high-energy flower buds instead of more wood. The field test. You can verify the success of this method by comparing a girdled branch to an ungirdled one on the same tree. By mid-spring, the girdled branch will typically have blossoms that are 30% larger and more vibrant. Invisible obstacles. The fatal error is cutting too deep or too wide. If the scar is too wide, over 5 millimeters, the tree may not be able to heal the bridge before the end of the season, potentially starving the roots and killing the tree. We want positive stress, not a death sentence. Timing gate. This must be done while the tree is still dormant, but just weeks away from the first sap flow. Doing this in the middle of summer will cause the tree to bleed sap and attract pathogens. January is the safe zone for this surgical intervention. Part 4. The mineral tea extracting liquid gold from waste. The fourth method revolves around a substance many people throw away: Wood ash. In modern gardening, ash is often viewed as a waste product or something to be dumped haphazardly around the base of a tree. But the reveal is that raw ash is too aggressive and alkaline for a dormant tree. To force overproduction, we must perform a state change, turning dry, caustic powder into a refined, bioavailable mineral tea. The practical intervention, the how-to: gather 1 kilogram of clean, white wood ash, about 1 large bowlful. Place it in a 20-liter bucket and fill the rest with rainwater. Do not use chlorinated tap water, as the chlorine can interfere with the mineral extraction. Stir the mixture vigorously for 5 minutes and let it steep for 48 hours. As it sits, the water will undergo a chemical shift, extracting the potassium, K, calcium, Ca, and trace minerals into a liquid form that the tree can drink instantly. After 48 hours, the heavy carbon particles will settle at the bottom. Siphon off the clear, amber-colored liquid. This is your liquid gold. Sensory instructions. The final tea should be clear and have a slippery, almost soapy feel between your fingers. This tells you the alkalinity is active and the minerals are suspended. When you apply it, dilute it 1:10 with more rainwater and pour it directly onto the root zone. The reality check. The biggest danger here is the source of your ash. You must never use ash from pressure-treated lumber, plywood, or industrial pallets. These contain arsenic, glues, and heavy metals that will poison your soil and stay in your fruit for years. Use only ash from natural, seasoned hardwoods like oak, maple, or fruitwood. The control group. Trees treated with this mineral tea in late January show a significantly higher rate of fruit set, meaning fewer flowers fall off, and more of them successfully transition into actual fruit. The potassium acts as a signal for the tree to strengthen its cell walls and prepare for the weight of a triple harvest. Part 5. Light architecture, the photon funnel. The final method doesn't exist in the soil or in a bucket of liquid. It exists in the way your tree interacts with the sky. Most people prune their trees to make them look tidy, but that is a dangerous aesthetic mistake. The reveal here is that your tree is not just a plant, it is a biological solar panel. If its structure does not allow every single photon to touch its interior, that energy is lost forever. We are going to build what I call a photon funnel. The practical intervention, the how-to: in the quiet cold of January, stand on the north side of your tree and look south, toward the sun. You need to remove what I call energy vampires, the water sprouts that shoot straight up from the main limbs. These vertical branches consume massive amounts of sap, but almost never produce fruit. Next, instead of cutting away healthy horizontal branches, we use a technique called stake and string. Use a soft cord to gently pull these branches down, securing them to create a 4-5 degree angle from the main trunk. Sensory instructions. As you pull the branch down, listen to the breath of the wood. You want to feel a firm, steady tension, but never the sharp crack of a break. Once the canopy is opened, the tree should look like an inverted funnel reaching up to catch the light. The operational rhythm. The rhythm of this system is simple. Every January morning, when the sun rises, walk around your tree. If you see the shadow of a large limb completely blacking out a cluster of flower buds beneath it, that is your signal to adjust. This funnel structure ensures that every square inch of leaf and bud is bathed in solar radiation, pushing photosynthesis to 100% efficiency. The control group. A tree pruned as a photon funnel will yield fruit that ripens evenly from the core to the tips. In contrast, a naturally bushy tree will only produce fruit on the outer shell, while the interior remains a graveyard of dead wood and aborted buds due to light starvation. Invisible obstacles. The fatal error is cutting too much at once. Never exceed 30% of the total canopy. If you overprune, the tree will panic and trigger vegetative growth, sending out thousands of tiny suckers to replace the lost leaf area instead of focusing on fruit. Remember, we are directing light, not destroying structure. Close your eyes for a moment and fast forward to a golden afternoon in late July. You walk out into your orchard, but it doesn't look like the silent, frustrating garden of years past. The air is thick with the scent of ripening sugar and warm earth. As you reach up into the canopy of the tree you worked on back in the cold of January, your fingers brush against skin that is taut, sun-warmed, and heavy. You pull a single fruit from the branch. It doesn't just fall off, it offers itself to you, a concentrated bundle of solar energy minerals, and ancient sap. When you bite into it, the juice isn't thin and watery, like the fruit from a supermarket shelf. It is complex, it is vibrant, it is the literal taste of a system that has been brought back into balance. This is the reward scene. This is the physical proof that you stopped being a consumer of garden products and started being a steward of natural laws. But the real harvest isn't just the fruit in your basket. The real harvest is the shift in your identity. You see, independence isn't about building a bunker or hiding from the world. True independence is a dinner plate filled with food you understood from the cell up. Freedom isn't about buying more high-tech solutions. It is about needing fewer of them because you finally understand the language of the land. The January tree system isn't just a gardening guide. It is a philosophy of self-sufficiency. It teaches us that growth without structure is just a waste of energy, and that a little bit of positive stress at the right time leads to an abundance that lasts a lifetime. Now, I don't want you to go out and try to overhaul every single tree on your property this weekend. That is how people burn out. That is how the old model wins. Instead, I am giving you permission to start small. Find one tree, the one that hasn't given you a single apple in 3 years, the one you were thinking about cutting down. Go to that tree tomorrow morning with your copper wire, your wood ash teeth, and your pruning shears. Apply these 5 forgotten methods to that one living being. When that one tree triples its yield this summer, you won't need me to tell you what to do next. You will have the new map. You will see the electrical potential in the air and the carbon cycles in the soil as clearly as you see the sun. We are closing the loop. We are taking back the knowledge that was quietly tucked away on dusty shelves. If you are ready to stop fighting nature and start leading it, subscribe and join this community of growers who choose truth over hype and harvest over wood. The secret isn't in the tool. The secret is in the timing. Your January starts now.